Hello everyone, and welcome to part four of our training on digital peace building and cyber conflict. This is the fourth, part of this particular training, having treated part one, two, and three of the same training. Like I said in our previous lectures, this is, the this course is very loaded. It covers every aspect of digital peace building and cyber conflict. And we have actually discussed a couple of areas. Let us proceed to module 9, having discussed module 1 to 8 on parts 1, 2, and 3 of this particular training. So we will look at module 9, and module 9 actually focuses on cybersecurity, human rights, and digital ethics. Module 9 will be will be all about balancing security, rights, and even ethics in the digital age. The overview of Module 9 is that it examines how cybersecurity policies, digital technologies, and cyber conflict affect human rights, civil liberties, and even ethical norms. It explores tensions between security and freedom, particularly around surveillance, data protection, freedom of expression, and even digital inclusion. So participants like you and I will learn how to apply human rights, based and of course ethical frameworks to digital peace building and cyber security initiatives. The learning objectives of Module 9 is that at the end of this module, you would be able to understand the relationship between cybersecurity and human rights. And also, you identify key digital rights affected by cyber conflict. You will also be able to analyze ethical challenges in surveillance and data use. You will also be able to examine legal and policy frameworks protecting digital rights and be able to also apply ethical principles to digital transformation initiatives. Now, let us quickly look at Module 9 proper now. Human rights in the digital age. Digital rights as human rights. International human rights law increasingly recognizes that, rights enjoyed offline must also be protected online. Yes, international human rights law increasingly recognizes that rights enjoyed offline must also be protected online. Now, what are the key digital rights? The rights we must know, key digital rights include rights to privacy, freedom of expression, right to, access to information, and even right to freedom of association, and even data protection. These are the five key digital rights: rights to privacy, rights to freedom of expression, rights to access to information, and rights to freedom of association, and also rights to data protection. Now, let us quickly look at cybersecurity versus human rights. What is the core tension? The core tension between both. Now, security imperatives actually suggest that countering cybercrime, and terrorism, protecting critical infrastructure, and also preventing misinformation and online harm. That is security imperatives, meaning that these are the things that must be put in place. It is normal, it is ethical to have, some of these, protecting critical infrastructure, preventing misinformation and online harm, and even countering cybercrime and terrorism. That is the norm. That is what should be done. Now, what are the risks that are attached to your rights? Rights risk. One of them is mass surveillance, arbitrary censorship. That's two. Three is internet shutdowns. And four, abuse of cyber laws. These are the risks associated to the rights that you enjoy or you are expected to enjoy, on the internet. Now, let us look at another area that talks about surveillance, privacy, and data protection. Digital surveillance. Governments and private actors use metadata collection, facial recognition, and even internet monitoring for digital surveillance. We should also know that when you have a digital twin, your digital twin is always there, and actually, captures the internet actually captures whatever you do online. The pattern of of whatever you do forms forms your digital twin. So digital surveillance, governments can actually use metadata collection, and even facial recognition, and even internet monitoring. Now, there are some ethical questions we must ask. When does surveillance for security becomes rights abuse? Yes, at what point should we say that surveillance for security now becomes an abuse of your digital rights? That is very important. So we have the Nigeria Data Protection Act, which is being enforced by the Nigerian Data Protection Commission. Then we have concerns over misuse of surveillance technologies, because we have areas where surveillance technologies can be misused. Now, the institutions I just mentioned, the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, that is actually meant to protect your data rights, and your digital rights. Now, let us look at freedom of expression and online regulation. Content moderation challenges. That is, we have. Let us just put between hate speech versus free speech. Hate speech versus free speech. Then we have platform governance versus state regulation. So these are content moderation challenges, and we have over-regulation, risk silencing dissent. Over-regulation, risk silencing dissent. Then the Africa example. What we have always seen in the Africa example is internet shutdown. Internet shutdowns are usually done during protests or elections. Sometimes shutdowns will be done during economic and social costs. And shutdowns can and of course, we should know that internet shutdowns impact on peace building and its impact on trust. Now, ethics of digital peace building. There are some core ethical, core ethical principles of digital peace building. Don't forget, this course is on digital peace building and cyber conflict. So there are some core ethical principles of digital peace building. Number one is do no harm. The do no harm principle is very important. It is a core principle of digital peace building. Number two is informed consent. It's informed consent. The other person must be informed, and his consent must be gotten before certain things are being done. Then two is data minimization. Data minimization, there's even transparency and accountability, and there's even inclusivity and equity. These are the core ethical principles we should be talking about. Now, look at ethical risk in peace tech. Ethical risk in peace tech. One is data misuse. Then we have algorithmic biases. Then we also have exclusion of marginalized communities. These are some of the ethical risks that is in peace tech. Exclusion of marginalized communities, and there are some communities that will be marginalized when you are, carrying out some kind of peace projects on the internet. Now, let's look at cyber conflict and civilian civilian protection. Cyber attacks on civilian infrastructure, and of course, we have impact on healthcare, water, and even energy. And we have challenges under international humanitarian law. These are cyber conflict and civilian protection. When you have cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, we talk about critical infrastructure. We have discussed what we mean by critical infrastructure. Healthcare systems is a critical infrastructure. Power grid systems is a critical infrastructure. Transport systems, these are critical infrastructures. And of course, let us quickly look at even some case studies here. Case study one is what we call Pegasus spyware and global surveillance. The use of spyware against journalists and activists, raises a lot of concern, and it raises serious ethical and legal concerns. Yes, when you use spyware against journalists and even activists. In number two, the case study two is Nigeria social media regulation debates. There have been proposals in Nigeria to regulate social media, and they have always been balancing of misinformation control with free expression. We have seen at a particular time when even Twitter was banned in Nigeria. These are all social media regulation issues. The case study is in Africa is the area of internet shutdowns. There have been internet shutdowns in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Uganda. And of course, in Uganda, the last election in Uganda, there was internet shutdown. So, and of course, the impacts, all this actually impacts on livelihoods, information flow, and even peace efforts. Once there's an internet shutdown, it will impact on livelihood, it will impact on information flow, and even peace efforts. Now, let us apply a human rights approach. Human rights approach, how do you apply human rights based approach to what we are talking about? Now, key steps: identify the affected rights. Two, assess proportionality and necessity. Three, engage stakeholders. And four, ensure oversight and remedies. These are the key steps to apply human rights-based approach. Now there are some discussion questions for this module 9. Quickly, we will look at them in the comment section. Number one, can cybersecurity and human rights coexist? Yes. Can cybersecurity and human rights coexist? Two, how can peace builders avoid reinforcing surveillance abuses? Three, should governments regulate social media more strictly? And four, how do digital rights affect conflict prevention and peace? These are areas to look at, very important in the as we round up module 9. Now let us look at module 10. Module 10 is actually looking at countering online extremism and digital violence. Countering online extremism and digital violence. Now we have digital strategies for countering radicalization and promoting what? Peace. That is still under module 10. That is what it's talking about. So this module 10 actually examines how extremist groups and violent actors use digital platforms for propaganda, for recruitment, and even mobilization, and how government, civil society, and technology, and even companies can counter these threats through digital peace building, counter narratives, and also resilience strategies. So participants like you and I will gain practical insights into monitoring, analyzing, and responding to online extremism while maintaining ethical and human rights standards. The learning objectives for Module 10 is that by the end of this module, participants like you and I should be able to do what? Understand the dynamics of online radicalization and extremist mobilization. We should be able to identify methods used by extremist groups to spread digital violence. We should be able to analyze the role of social media and messaging platforms in recruitment. And we should be able to develop counter narratives and digital resilience strategies. And of course, we should be able to apply digital peace building tools to prevent online violence. Now, quickly, online extremism. What are the key concepts of online extremism? And of course, what is even the definition of online radicalization? Online radicalization is the process by which individuals adopt extremist beliefs through digital content. And digital violence can be defined as what? Online actions that incite or coordinate physical or psychological harm. Look at these two things. Online radicalization and digital what? Violence. We know that the radicalization aspect of it online is it's the process by which individuals adopt extremist beliefs through digital content. While the digital violence of it is when online actions that will incite or coordinate physical or psychological harm. Now, why do extremists go online? Why do extremists go online? Extremists actually go online, one, to reach wider audiences, two, to circumvent traditional media, three, anonymity and low-cost dissemination. It is actually there's anonymity and there's a low-cost dissemination. And the fourth one is target vulnerable groups, especially the youth. That is why extremists go online. And another platform, what we must know is that we must ask ourselves, what are the platforms that are commonly exploited by extremists? Platforms that are commonly exploited by extremists is one, social media like Facebook, Twitter or X, TikTok, Instagram. Then we have messaging apps like WhatsApp, Telegram, and video platforms like YouTube and Vimeo, and we have online forums and gaming platforms. These are the commonly exploited platforms by extremists. And what are the methods of online extremism? Methods of online extremism is very simple. One, propaganda. Propaganda has to do with what? Glorifying violence and promoting ideology. Two is recruitment. Those are their methods, online extremism. Targeting youth and marginalized individuals. Three, fundraising. There's digital payments and cryptocurrency. They use online extremism to do that. Then, of course, psychological warfare, which has to do with spreading fear and intimidation. And four, disinformation, framing narratives to justify violence. Then what are the case studies we may quickly look at? Case studies we should quickly look at. In Nigeria, it is the Boko Haram and the ISWAP. So Boko Haram use encrypted messaging apps for recruitment. ISWAP and Boko Haram also use digital propaganda targeting local youth. They also even do counter narratives implemented by governments and NGOs. So initiatives like YPSA, YPSA Nigeria is youth peace engagement. It's a youth peace engagement platform. And we have civil society digital literacy campaigns. This civil society digital literacy campaign can actually be used to counter the activities of online extremists. Then, of course, in Africa, in Sahel and East Africa, we have the El Shabaab recruitment in Somalia and Kenya. We have the use of WhatsApp and social media for radicalization. So, and of course, there's also what we call community-based counter messaging programs. So people, responses can come in the form of community-based counter messaging programs. Then global examples, we have global examples of ISIS. ISIS can use digital caliphate propaganda on Telegram and Twitter. ISIS also use sophisticated multimedia campaigns. So then what the response should be has to do, like there should be international de-radicalization efforts. So all these are some of the things we must know. Then how do we counter online extremism? Countering online extremism. One method is digital literacy and awareness. Training youth to critically evaluate online content. That is one. And even building resilience to extremist narratives. This can come under digital literacy and awareness. Then number two, counter narratives. Counter narratives. Under counter narrative, we look at positive messaging, promoting tolerance and civic values, and also engaging influencers and even local leaders. Yes. Then number three, we can use monitoring and early warning. We are talking about how to counter online extremism. The third aspect is monitoring and early warning. That is using social media monitoring tools and also tracking emerging extremist trends and online threats. And the fourth one is what? Partnership and multi-stakeholder action. We have always said it. Cybersecurity, countering online hate speeches, countering disinformation, all of them cannot be done by one country alone. That is why there is always a kind of cross-border cooperation between states, between countries, so as to deal with cyber crime and cyber espionage and other cyber crimes effectively. So now we look at under partnership and multi-stakeholder action. We look at like the governments, civil society, and even tech platforms. Sharing information and coordinating interventions. Now let's look at Nigeria specific digital interventions. Digital interventions that are Nigeria specific. We have digital youth initiative programs. What about these digital youth initiative programs actually promote peace through social media? Then we have fact-checking platforms like Dubawa. There's Fact Africa Check Nigeria. These are Nigeria specific. That is digital interventions that are specific to Nigeria. Then we have community-based online dialogue forums. And for those of us that want to do online peace building or digital peace building, these are various initiatives that we can come up with. We can even set up digital youth initiative programs, all of them to promote peace through social media. Then, of course, we have to do ethical and human rights consideration. Ethical and human rights consideration. That is, we have to avoid infringing on freedom of expression. We have to maintain privacy and data protection. We have to ensure inclusivity in intervention and strategies, and we have to avoid stigmatization of communities. Then, of course, the next one is what? Technology tools for countering extremism. Technology tools for countering extremism. What are the technology? Number one is the use of AI-driven content monitoring, like hate speech detection. We can use AI to detect hate speeches, and to monitor content. Then there's what we call the second aspect is crisis mapping of extremist activities. Crisis mapping of extremist activities. 3, chatbots for counter messaging and education. These are digital tools for countering extremism. Then we talk about digital campaigns targeting vulnerable population. These are various ways that digital technology or technology tools can be used to counter extremism. Now, some discussion questions still in this module 10. At the end of this module 10, what are the discussion questions we should talk about at the content section? 1, how do extremist groups exploit digital platforms differently from traditional media? 2, what are the key challenges in implementing counter narratives online? 3, how can youth be engaged in preventing digital radicalization? And 4, how do human rights considerations shape counter-terrorism strategies? These are some of the discussion. Please engage us. in the content section as we move to module uh, 11. Module 11 will be looking at climate change, environmental conflict, and digital peace building. In this area, we will look at the interplay of environmental stress, digital tools, and conflict prevention. So this module 11 actually explores how climate change and environmental degradation contribute to conflict dynamics, particularly in vulnerable regions. So it examines how digital technologies can support early warning, monitoring, and even peace building interventions, integrating environmental and security perspectives. So participants here will analyze resource conflicts, climate induced displacement, and even digital responses using Nigeria, Africa, and global examples. So the learning objectives is that at the end of module 11, these participants should be able to do what? To understand how climate change drives conflict and insecurity, to identify key environmental conflict hotspots, to even explore the role of digital tools in monitoring and mitigating environmental conflict, to even examine case studies of climate sensitive digital peace building, and also to propose integrated strategies linking climate resilience and digital conflict prevention. Very, very important. Now, let us quickly look at it very quickly. Climate change and conflict nexus. What is the link between climate change and conflict? When you have rising temperatures, you have droughts and flooding increase. All this will now increase to a resource scarcity. So, and when there's competition over water, land, and pasture, it drives community and ethnic tensions. The moment you have climate-induced migration and displacement, it will now exacerbate political and social instability. Now, in the Nigerian context, farmer-herder conflict in the Middle Belt is linked to desertification. Yes, desertification. What it means is that climate change is largely responsible for the farmer-herder conflict we have in Nigeria. When you have flooding in northern and southern regions, it can cause displacement. Now, environmental conflict hotspots in Africa. Environmental conflict hotspots in Africa. Number one, we have Lake Chad Basin. That the Lake Chad Basin has been shrinking. The shrinking water resources and even militant activity in that Lake Chad Basin has actually been is one of the conflict hotspots in Africa. Then in the Sahel region, we have desertification and even violent extremism. Then in the Horn of Africa, we have drought-driven pastoral conflict that are driven by droughts. All these are some of the. Now, let us look at a global example. In Syria, drought and resource scarcity is actually contributing to political unrest. So, what are we going to be looking at now? Let us talk about digital tools for environmental peace building. What are the digital tools for environmental peace building? Now, there are four in number, four categories of digital tools for environmental peace building. One is remote sensing and satellite monitoring. Remote sensing and satellite monitoring. That means tracking of land degradation, deforestation, and water levels, and early warning of environmental stress. This comes under remote sensing and satellite monitoring. Then, example is what? The NASA Earth observations for climate conflict risk analysis. Then let us look at the second aspect is geographic information system, GIS. GIS can be used to map conflict-prone areas, to identify vulnerable communities, and also to even integrate socio-environmental data for policy planning. These are digital tools for environmental peace building. The third category is what? Mobile and crowdsourcing platforms. Under mobile and crowdsourcing platform, you talk about community reporting of environmental hazards, early warning SMS alerts for floods and droughts, and even platforms linking local knowledge to decision makers. Like the example is the Ushahidi mapping environmental incidents in Kenya. Ushahidi mapping environmental incidents in Kenya and what? And Nigeria. And the fourth category of digital tools for environmental peace building is what we call big data and predictive analysis. Big data and predictive analysis will have to do what? It's about analyzing patterns of displacement, migration, and social cohesion. This will now help to forecast potential conflict triggers. So that is big data and predictive analysis has to do with the use of artificial intelligence to do that. Now let us actually go to climate sensitive peace building strategies. What are the peace building strategies that we should come up with that is climate sensitive? Number one, integrated natural resource management. Integrated natural resource management is a climate sensitive peace building strategy. Two, early warning systems combining environmental and social data. Three, community engagement and dialogue platforms. Four, policies that are supporting sustainable livelihoods. These are major climate sensitive peace building strategies. When you integrate natural resource management, that is the natural resources are being properly managed, and early warning systems combining environmental and social data, so that data can be used for predictive analysis. Then, of course, community engagement and dialogue forums for early warning, for quick reporting of sensitive areas, and of course, policies that support sustainable livelihood. These are conflict sensitive, climate sensitive peace building strategies. Now let's look at some case studies. Nigeria, the Middle Belt farmer header conflict. The Middle Belt farmer header conflict, that is a very big case study in Nigeria. We know that drought and desertification drive pastoral migration, escalating clashes over farmland. So the digital monitoring platform should track incidents and displacement, and civil society should use SMS alerts and community dialogue to mitigate conflict. That is case study of Nigeria. Then in Kenya, we have drought and pastoralist conflict too. Yes, in Kenya, there's GIS and satellite data to predict water scarcity. Mobile platforms for early warning and also conflict prevention can be used, and community-based adaptation programs. Then you have global examples like the Bangladesh flood monitoring. The Bangladesh flood monitoring has to do with early warning systems that usually alert communities to extreme flooding, and there's integration with local disaster management, which enhances the resilience. So how do we now integrate climate adaptation measures to reduce resource-based tensions? How do we use digital tools to improve timely information and coordination? And what about cross-sector collaboration between government, civil society, and tech innovators? There are some discussion questions too that we can talk about in the comment section of this video, and that has to do with what? Number one, how does climate change exacerbate conflict in Nigeria and Africa? Number two, what digital tools are most effective for monitoring environmental stress? Number three, how can digital early warning systems support climate resilient peace building? And number four, what role should local communities play in climate sensitive digital interventions? These are some of the things we are still going to do. In one of our next course is going to be on environmental conflict, and climate change and environmental conflict. That is the next course that we are going to handle: climate change and environmental conflict. Let us quickly move to module 12, which happens to be the last module for this particular training course on digital peace building and cyber conflict. Now, module 12 is looking at future trends and policy responses. And under these future trends and policy responses, we'll be looking at digital peace building measures, emerging risk, and strategic policy responses. In this module 12, we will look at and explore emerging trends in cyber conflict, digital peace building, and climate-related security challenges. We will examine the role of technology, artificial intelligence, and innovation, and we can identify future hotspots and risk, and outlines policy recommendation and best practices for government, civil society, and practitioners. So participants will develop and understand how to anticipate and respond to evolving digital and environmental threats while promoting sustainable peace. What are the learning objectives for module 12? By the end of this module 12, participants should be able to do what? Identify emerging risk in cyber conflict and climate-related insecurity. Analyze future trends in digital peace building and technology-enabled interventions. And participants will also be able to understand the role of AI, big data, and innovation in conflict prevention. We will also be able to develop strategic policy recommendation for governments and institutions, and we can also apply lessons learned to anticipate and mitigate future peace and security challenges. So now, these are some of the things we must not, we should be mindful of. Now, let us look at climate security futures. Climate security futures. Now, we must understand that there is rising global temperature, there is extreme weather, and we know that sea levels are rising, and all this can exacerbate resource scarcity, and it can exacerbate displacement and even conflict. Vulnerable regions, especially in Africa, will face heightened migration and competition over water, land, and food. So, digital monitoring and predictive analytics will become critical for anticipating climate driven conflict. Example is like, predictive modeling of water scarcity in the Lake Chad for early warning, for early conflict warning. Let us look at emerging risk and hotspots. Emerging risk and hotspots. Global cyber risks. One, under global cyber risk, we have state-sponsored cyber operations, AI-powered disinformation campaigns, and